They're in charge of investigating and inspecting the track and the railroads to pull them to, high safety standards. And they're on the ground there. They have 7 investigators on the ground in Casselton, a couple who are experts on track, one hazmat person, an operations person, somebody who's an expert on signals, and a mechanical inspector. So they're looking at all the possible causes of this derailment, and that investigation is underway. They don't have any initial thoughts yet that they can share as to what the cause of the accident is, but they are looking really carefully at it and hope to know fairly soon. I do know that there was 33 cars involved. 21 of those were involved that derailed, more on the train, but 33 derailed. 21 of those were on the merchant train or the lumber train that you were discussing, and 12 of those were empty tanker cars, empty crew cars that were heading west. And so it happened as you discussed. The merchant train derailed, and the empty crew train that was passing by, they collided, and that resulted in 33 cars off the track. No one has been injured. There was no leaked hazardous material that has been found or that they're concerned about. And so first, anxious to get to the bottom of what caused the accident, and again, stay really focused on what we can do to prevent these things in the future.
Do we know if any of even though the cars were empty, do we know if any of them ruptured?
You know what? I don't know that, Rob, but I was assured that they haven't had any hazardous materials leaking.
701-293-9000 if you want to join the program, 888-970-9329. Also via Twitter if you want to ask your questions, at Rob Port. What has been, I think the question a lot of people are asking is, we had the derailment less than a year ago, explosive derailment. What has been done between now and then to make sure that these trains aren't derailing? I mean, what sort of actions have been taken? I think that's a question a lot of people are asking this morning.
Right. And that's a very legitimate question, and that's a question that I'll continue to ask the Federal Rail Administration as well. They're the lead agency responsible for the safety of the rail system in our country, and I know they beefed up their presence in North Dakota. We've had a 230% increase in volumes on our rail in the last 10 to 15 years. And probably higher than that. That number comes from 2012, and so that's a little even outdated. And so they've really had to increase their presence here to, double down on safety and try to prevent more and more of these accidents. But you've got 60 to 65 trains per day going through Casselton, and so that's just a lot of volume and a very narrow margin for error. So, they're looking at the track. They're looking at the equipment, holding the railroads accountable to high operating standards, and there's a lot of places where things can break down, and obviously we've seen now 2 examples where that can happen. I will mention that this is part of the reason why I proposed a state supplemental rail safety program. I think that the state should be kicking in here and adding more inspectors of our own to the safety improvements of the rail, and to working with the railroads to hold them to high standards, and to do whatever we can to minimize these kinds of accidents in the future. Recognizing that, the rail is vital to our state's economy. It carries a vast majority of both our ag products and our energy products to market. And so we need the rail system. We need it to be operating safely and efficiently. And secondly, the citizens are counting on these somebody in the government to hold their railroads accountable for high safety standards, because they can't take any proactive steps of their own to protect themselves from the safety of the rails. So this is clearly a government function. It's one that I think the state can step in and help out with, and I hope that the legislature approves that proposal that I believe the governor will be including in his budget in the next session, and is part of the PSC's proposal.
Yeah, I want to make clear. I want to make clear that North Dakota's Public Service Commission does not have really any regulatory authority over the railroads of the state. It's all federal government, and it's been that way for a long, long time. That
is true.
And what you're asking for is basically the state needs to get some skin in the game here, because clearly this is impacting our states. It's hugely important. The rail capacity is hugely important to our state economy. The safety is hugely important to our citizens, and the state needs to have an involvement. I hope your proposal passes as well. We have Robert on the line with a question. Public Service Commissioner Julie Fedorchak is on with me. Go ahead, Robert. What's on your mind?
Good morning. You might have answered part of this. How does speed have anything to do with this? I know that the rails are always looking to increase their speed, because they say that their trains and cars and the tracks are safe. And I was wondering if that had anything to do, and if the state can do anything, to curtail their excessive speed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance between safety and obviously the slower they go, the less rail capacity we have, and we want more rail capacity, but it's also a safety issue, so you've kind of got to balance the two. Have you heard, the one thing that I had heard, I believe I saw the mayor of Casselton had said that the roads were respecting their speed limit, which I think was around 40 miles an hour, but they were saying really the city had no way to enforce it, and they couldn't do anything outside of city limits. But Julie, what your thoughts, Commissioner?
Yeah, these speed standards are set nationally by the FRA, and the state and locals can't have separate rail speed standards. They need to be uniform and consistently applied for interstate commerce purposes. But the crude trains are restricted in terms of how fast they can operate. I believe it's 40 or 45 miles per hour on the crude trains. Whether that's the case when they're empty, I'm not completely sure about that, Robert. I have to double check. But those speed standards are set by the FRA, and those are things that they're looking at as part of the overall big picture. What's the safest speed for these trains to be operating on? Again, to maximize the capacity of the rails, because the minute like Rob just said, the minute you slow the trains down, then you're exacerbating the problem we have on the ag side of things, and on the coal side, frankly, as well. We've got coal shipments and electric utilities that are begging for more coal to keep their fuel source strong through the winter. So you have to have, it's a delicate balance there to have the trains operating at safe speeds, but at the fastest speed possible, to get as much capacity down the rail as we can to move all our products, energy, ag, as well as merchandise.
Robert, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Julie, back to your proposal for additional state regulators. Give us some nuts and bolts on how exactly that would impact situations like this. The state gets more inspectors. What are they going to do? I mean, what exactly are they going to do to help make our rails safer?
Well, the state inspectors simply provide more inspectors on the ground every day, working just in North Dakota on the track. That is a concern to us. The beauty of the state program is that we get to decide where to focus the personnel. So I've proposed focusing them on track and mechanical. Those are the two issues that we know cause the most derailments and the most dangerous derailments. So those state inspectors, if approved, would be out there examining the track. They'd be working in tandem with the federal inspectors, and they'd have the same authority as the federal inspectors to shut down a section of the track if they saw a big problem, or to require, work orders on the track and temporary speed restrictions or whatever might be necessary to keep it safe. Same with the mechanical side. Those folks look at the equipment. This train accident may have been caused by a mechanical problem. I don't know. They don't know yet. But it could be track. It could have been mechanical. It could have been a signal issue. Who knows? It's unlikely, I guess, a signal issue since the train derailed. But the grain train that hit the crude train before and caused the explosion, that was a mechanical error where something broke on the train and caused the derailment. So the other inspector that I proposed would be a mechanical equipment person looking at the engines and the mechanical procedures and maintenance and all of those types of things that the railroad performs to keep the trains operating safely. So they'd have the same authority as the federal rail inspectors. They'd be employed by us and trained by the FRA, and they'd be accountable to North Dakotans, which I think is the big difference, and then that one of the most compelling reasons to do the state program is having that accountability to North Dakota leaders here, not to folks in the regional office for the FRA, which is out in Washington.
Julie, you have time to hold through the break, talk about some coal?
I sure do.
Julie Fedorchak, our Public Service Commissioner. If you want to join the program, 701-293-9000, 888-970-9329. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away.